His award-winning portrayal of Jesus on the hit series The Chosen has brought the Bible to life for millions. Joining me now is actor Jonathan Roumie. Hello, Jonathan.
Hi, Laura. How are you?
Oh, good. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, it's my honor.
Jonathan, as you've portrayed the character of Jesus throughout 3 seasons of The Chosen, it's such a weight because over 2 billion people believe Jesus to be the Son of God. It's a very big pressure. How have you handled that pressure?
You know, Laura, I try not to think about that. I try not to think of me having a responsibility as opposed to having the opportunity to just reflect the love, mercy, and compassion of Christ himself, to be a vessel for that message and a reflection of that love and that image that he's given us in the form of his humanity. So I think if I actually did think about it as a responsibility, I would probably be crushed under the weight of it all. Sometimes it gets a little overwhelming just to kind of, when you're surrounded by a bunch of people kind of looking at you as the physical personification of Jesus, and the energy that kind of comes with that, and as an actor being sensitive to energy and spirit, and as a Christian being very kind of sensitive to spiritual energy, and spirits, that can be a little bit overwhelming. But I could never fool myself into thinking that I'm responsible for anything. You know, I'm just, God does all the heavy lifting, and I just kind of try to help him in the best way I can.
One thing that I've read about your process is that you try to empty yourself out as much as possible, so God's Spirit can move through you. Yeah,
that's true. Even before, you may or may not have seen it, depending on how conscious I am of the crowd or extras or people. I'll usually pray even just before a scene. I'll try to connect, and especially if I'm feeling like overwhelmed or just needing to just connect with God more, I'll stop and pray, and then we'll start the scene, and I'll just hope that's actually happening, that channeling is actually happening, and not in a medium kind of a sense, like I'm doing a seance or anything. Sometimes I think I read that back, having said things like that, and I'm like, I wonder if people are misinterpreting that. So just to be clear, it's like it's just being, maybe a mirror is better, just being sort of a mirror of God's love and mercies is kind of what I mean by channel. Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense. What is one of the most challenging scenes that you've had to film throughout the series?
Well, the scene you saw yesterday was day 2 of a 12-page scene, and that was one of the more challenging scenes because there's so many people. We were in extreme heat. It was uncomfortable for a lot of people, and at one point I think I had 3 or 4 pages of essentially just a monologue, and I'm moving and I'm addressing different people. So when you have all these different elements, and luckily there wasn't any complicated choreography, so there was that, but mentally, just doing a giant scene like that when there's so many people, so many factions, and then we're dealing with the sunlight, and the sunlight has to hit that character a certain way. So we're going to start the beginning of your monologue here, but then we're going to stop, and then we're going to film this other part of that scene there while we have the light, and then we'll come back to your monologue. So you're in and you're out, you're in and you're out. So it's one of the reasons that I prefer to work as a method actor, because I can always have a way that anchors me into the authenticity of what I'm doing at that time and bringing as much of my life and my humanity to the role, even when we're going in and out like that. But that's when you have that and it's not linear, it can be a little tricky.
And we did watch that scene. It was very moving, and I was amazed at how you could land some of those lines, the impact that it had emotionally.
Oh, awesome.
It was really beautiful to watch.
It's like a theater performance. You never get that. You never get this. Like,
No.
I saw you perform that scene live, and it's like, wait a minute, it's a TV show. Oh yeah, we had people there that were not just
great.
actors and crew.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting to hear that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, it's really impactful. As we're looking into season 3 of The Chosen now, you are working on it right now. So, and you've learned probably quite a bit about Jesus. I know you're an avid theologian in different ways. I know you're studying through Roman Catholic theologians and different avenues. But as you move into season 3, what have you learned new about Jesus as you're portraying him in this season?
Well, I just want to be clear that I do not have a theology degree. I'm a fan of a lot of theologians. I listen to various pastors of many denominations. I'm a huge fan of Francis Chan and, I can name a list of people. But I think that the things that I've learned about Jesus working on this season, on season 3 of The Chosen, essentially, I think can be boiled down to just a deeper understanding of his compassion. And in the way that I'm connected to my faith, just trying to go further in being a better example of Jesus' love in my own life. And so that's taking ownership when I screw up. When I screw up, I mess up just like everybody else. I'm very human, and I think learning to be a better disciple is something that I come away with every season, and and that's a lifelong process. That doesn't just end when season 7, God willing, culminates. Hopefully that will continue long after this show, that I will, as long as I'm alive, I will continue to be a better disciple.
Yes, that's a prayer for so many of us. That's the truth. You talked about wanting to emulate the compassion of Christ and be who he is to others. And you have a lot of beautiful stories of people who are viewers that come up to you and they have exchanges with you. And you know that God is simply using you. You're Jonathan Roumie, you're not Jesus.
Right.
But you have some beautiful stories. What is one story in particular you'd want to share?
The one that I like sharing the most is the one that has been probably the most impactful for me, which was meeting this young girl. She's 20. I met her last year. The year prior, she was on the road to committing suicide. She had literally written out a suicide note for her family. She was going to hang herself in her parents' house. And she just was at the literal end of her rope, and I think it was a friend of hers got her to watch the first episode of The Chosen, season 1, and after that she had this epiphany that God truly loved her and that her life was worth something, it meant something, and that she had a purpose in this world. And she decided not to commit suicide. And a year later was sitting with her family telling me about it. And we're all kind of like bawling our eyes out. And this summer I had the opportunity to go and visit her family. I didn't get to see her, but I visited her one of her relatives. And I got the follow-up, and she's now working with troubled youth herself to kind of help them. And that's the 7 seasons is worth that one life, and beyond. I mean, that one life is worth all the television in the history of television and everything else.
Yes.
And the fact that we were a part in helping her stick around for a while longer, and then all of a sudden be a person of impact herself is just, you can't put a price on that.
And Jonathan, that's only one story. Only one story. There are millions being impacted. I'm so thankful for all the work you're putting into this, the prayerful energy you're putting into this. Thank you so much for your time today.
I appreciate your time. Thank you.